One last thing I want to ask you about involves an ongoing controversy regarding understanding who Hitler really was ideologically. There was a polyglot scholar in the US who, well, actually, maybe he was probably lived in Europe most of his life now that I think about it, but I don't know how well he was known in Europe. But Erich von Kuehnelt-Leddihn wrote a book called Leftism, and then he wrote Leftism Revisited, in which he advanced the thesis that there were so many revolutionary aspects of Hitler's thought that he could not be considered a man of the right, that he basically belonged on the left. In fact, I believe the subtitle of Kuehnelt-Leddihn's book, the second half of the subtitle, it was Leftism Revisited, from so-and-so to Hitler and Pol Pot. And the subtitle is meant to be striking because nobody would have associated Hitler with the left, and he just casually inserted Hitler's name into the subtitle. On the other hand, a present-day scholar, Paul Gottfried, who is a friend of this program, disagrees and says that clearly Hitler was a man of the right. Now, some people may think this is all just meaningless semantics, and those people can skip this question, but I find this very interesting. Where do you come down on this question, left or right?
I'm in the middle. I think it's wrong to say Hitler was right or reactionary. On the other hand, it's too easy to call him left-wing. But I give you a little food of thought. We have here, or we had here, a German-British publicist. His name was Sebastian Haffner, who wrote a very good essay about Hitler. And he pointed out that the only opposition which could get really have become dangerous for Hitler came from the right. And indeed, this is correct. The only effective opposition to Hitler represented by conservative and in part also monarchistic forces. You know, for example, the assassination attempt on Adolf Hitler on July 20, 1944. These were more right-wing people. And if you look how Hitler saw himself, you know, I have a lot of quotes in my book. And so also I like to give you here a quote to this topic. Here in 1941, he remembered the so-called time of struggle in one of his monologues in his inner circle. And he said, "My party at the time consisted of 90% of people from the left. I could only use people who had fought." This was certainly an exaggeration, but we know that from recent analysis of the NSDAP membership lists by the political scientist Jürgen Falter, that 40% of National Socialist Workers' Party members were indeed workers. And the same is true for the party voters. And so if you ask how Hitler saw himself, he did not regard himself as being either on the left or on the right, but wanted to overcome both extremes, but of course not in the middle, however, but in a new extreme in which both were abolished. So here, maybe a last quote for today from 1944. He said, "In those days, the definitions of both terms were diametrically opposed to each other. The one was on the right side of the barricade and the other on the left. And I went right in between these two fighters. In other words, climbed up on the barricade itself and therefore was naturally shot by both. I attempted to define a new term under the motto that in the end, nationalism and socialism are the same, under the one condition, namely that the nation moves into the center of all desire. Those days, I had heavy battles, both from the left as well from the right." So this was the way as he saw himself. So I would say it's definitely wrong to say that Hitler was right-wing, but it makes things too easy to say that he was left-wing. He was an extremist who took things from both sides. And
he took the worst things from both sides.
Yes, especially what he thought the best was the worst, the collectivism. This way, as he saw, nationalism and socialism was really the same. You're absolutely right. He took the worst from both sides.